Linda is going to be sharing with us this morning about yes or no. Which is it? Tell us,
Yes, and
Linda.
I will tell you which it is. One is like it's never just yes or no, because if you remember, we always need to have at least three options. Yes or no is a dilemma, so we want to offer that third option. But this is a result of Denise saying, well, how exactly do you get to that yes or no? I think, was that your question, Denise? Oh, she doesn't remember. Okay. So it's just um, I did, of course, I did a little PowerPoint because it was so much fun. And just to remind you, in person, we never do PowerPoint. So maybe that's why I'm having fun with it. So yes or no, which is it? It's like there's two paths. I mean, if you look at this, how many paths do you see? Right? You can go left or you can go right, but you can also turn around and go the way you came. So that's another third way. Or you could go through the woods. So that's another way. But I think the question is like, how do I say yes and how do I say no? And I think it might that might have come from Denise, because I had said that saying yes when you want to say no and saying no when you want to say yes is a national dis-ease, is what Virginia Satir said. She said it in a therapy session, or she said it in a program she was teaching. So remember that Satir started, it was a communication model, and she was very much about wanting to help people communicate what was going on inside of them. So instead of saying yes when they really wanted to say no, she really invited people to give themselves permission to be really more genuine with themselves and more genuine with others. And of course, how we express ourselves is another way of one of the meta goals of being more responsible. So you could say it in a way that maybe it can be compassionate and kind. So we really want to look at what's below the surface of your yes or no. And that brings up like this whole, where does the yes or no originate for you? You know, we may see the behaviors of somebody saying, no, I don't want to, or yes. I mean, I know with my adult daughter, I would say, yes, I'll do it. But the way I would look, she would go, it's okay if you want to say no, Mom. I don't want you to say yes because you feel obligated. So that sort of brings the question of, where does it originate? Is it in your perception of yourself? Is it in your expectations of yourself? Does it come from expectations from others that I should say yes, but I don't want to? So there's sort of this obligation thing that sort of happens. And then we want to look at this next piece, which is, it all comes down to self-esteem. It's like all of you that have been in these like meetings with Jennifer and I'm wondering if you're just like, oh no, it's self-esteem yet again. It's just the root of everything. So it's sort of like self-esteem. If I feel good about me, I'm not going to be catering to the outside. I will be strong. And so there's always like at the root of the yes or no, often there's this sort of like, will I lose something? And so what is the basis of losing something? It's often fear, this sort of fear that I'm going to hurt you and I don't want to hurt you because I care about you. So we really want to look at this self-esteem thing, which is how we experience ourselves. It's not necessarily, I think initially when I first started taking Satir, um, with the Satir Institute, it was presented in a way that it's like how I judge myself. And judging comes from cognitive, it comes from perception. So we really want to look at more about, you know, self-esteem is more about how we experience ourselves. And Jennifer and I have really looked at like how we want to maybe even switch that to be more about compassion, how we can be compassionate toward ourselves. There's also like this self-esteem is like, if I say yes when I want to say no, it's like I might be afraid that I'm going to be rejected, that you won't like me, you don't want me in your life, or you'll fire me. There's some sort of rejection that's involved in like when we're not able to say a yes or a no from inside of myself. So from my, you could say sort of my life force energy. And there's also this sense of like, you're more important than I am. So if you think about the coping stances as I'm sharing this, the coping stances sort of come up with, like, am I placating as a way to get my yearning met? And all of these different things are all part of my beliefs and my perceptions. So it's what I believe about myself, it's what I believe about the world, it's how I think about myself, it's about how I think about the world, and it's like how I see myself. And so then you look at like fear. So this is sort of maybe a little bit of a new concept. I had a discussion with our friend John Banman, and fear is an expectation. So I kind of expect fear. Like if I say no, I can expect to have fear that I'm going to get rejected. And it's also a perception. So fear is not just an emotion, but it's an expectation and it's a perception. So fear often drives our yes and no's if they're not true from the inside of what I really want to say. So I wrote these next little responses when asked a yes or no question, because I worked with teenage girls for 15 years in a residential program. And so kids with attachment issues, and many adults have attachment issues because we all have attachments. And some of the other ways to get around sort of like having to be put on the spot with I need a yes or a no right now is that I don't know right now, I'll get back to you. And part of that in teaching people to be able to say I don't know right now, I'll get back to you, is like that it's always good to add a when, like I'll get back to you in the next day or two, because otherwise it gets put on the back burner, and then it's like grows mold and you never get back to it. So it's good to add in that sort of like the when. And another possible response is, let me think about it and I'll let you know. So like if somebody's pushing you, I need you to tell me yes or no right now. It's like, well, let me think about it for a little while. Otherwise, you might be, you might say yes when you want to say no, or you might say no when you want to say yes. So it gives you a little bit of time to sort of like go within yourself and look at like, what's the driving force here? Like, what is the motivation for saying yes or saying no? And then the other possibility is like, I need more information before I answer you. So a lot of people seem to have issues with, like, if they don't know, then they feel confused. But just to remind you, like, if we're confused, it often means we just need more information. So it's not a bad thing to be confused, but often we need to be able to ask, I need some more information before I make a decision. And that's being, a better choice maker. And so it really, all of this comes into our meta goals too, of being a better choice maker, having higher self-esteem, and being more congruent. And so then you have another answer, could be, no, I don't want to, but I will. And that's one that I taught to the kids a lot, is that, will you do this for me? No, I don't want to, but I will. Or yes, I will, but I don't want to. Because in a way, that's that communication model. I'm being true to myself. I am willing to do it, but I don't really want to. So I'm not pretending that I want to. And I'm not just saying, sure, I'll do it, I'm happy to do it. I'm saying, I don't want to, but I will do it. So it is sort of like a yes or a no. And then if you needed, was one that I used with my kids when they were growing up, and my grandkids now, is like, if you need an answer right now, the answer is no. However, I'd like to think about it further and maybe I'll get to a yes. So sort of like, if somebody needs an answer right now, I will go with my strongest sense in that moment. And that could be a no, or it could be a yes. And that could be, can I go to so-and-so's house and play? And it's like, I don't know, I want to think about it, but I want to know right now, I want to know right now. And I'm like, okay, if you need an answer now, the answer is no. Otherwise, let me think about it for an hour and I'll get back to you. And so they usually say, okay, I'll let you think about it. I'll accept that answer. And so the self-esteem is the first part. And then this is like really one of the best ways to know about your yes or no. And that is the body and your physiology. So if you remember with the iceberg, I'm going to go back. I'll go back in a minute. The physiology is all along the outside of the iceberg, because our body has, trillions of cells, and our mind does not have trillions of cells. Our brain doesn't. So our body is like this huge resource of wisdom and intelligence. So the body becomes like a thermometer. It tells you when you're out of sync. So you might be getting ready to say yes, and it's like your body saying no, 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 no. So are you willing to listen to your body talking to you? So am I willing to listen to my body when I'm wanting to say yes, but I feel like, oh, I should, the expectation, I should say no because it's like what they expect of me, or I should want to say no, but I don't. So your body is one indicator, and it's the best indicator of your true yes or your true no. So that often means that we have to slow down and like tune in, as Cindy, our admin assistant, would say, be attuned, not stay tuned, but be attuned to your body and what's happening in your body and your physiology. So some of our body signs that if we're going to not listen to the body is that, sweating, we'll start to sweat, or we'll feel ourselves get really cold, or we'll get really hot. We may start doing a little bit of shaking. I know somebody that when they get upset, their mouth, all around their mouth starts to quiver. And I know that there's some anger there. I sense that it's like there's some anger, but it's trying to be contained. So the body's like saying, I'm upset, but I'm trying to pretend like or present that I'm not upset at all. And then also sometimes our chest gets tight or our heart beats faster. We can flush or blush. I'm fair skinned, so I can like blush pretty quickly. And it's like that sort of gives it away that it's like something's going on inside of me. Or my eyes will widen as a way for my body's talking. And we all have these ways that our body talks to us. So tuning in when you're getting ready to say yes or no. And I think the other key is that if we can slow down, we can slow down. And that, again, going back to those answers, is just give me a minute. I need to think about this. Think about it, but that's the head. But also is I need to listen to what I'm hearing. And when I say I need to listen to what I'm hearing, what that means is I need to listen to what my body's saying to me. And it's like also like, that our unique life force energy, that is part of the body. It's coming through the body. My life force energy is talking to the body. And often I can, if I'm tuned in, if I'm attuned to my body experience, I can be like, oh, okay, let me see what's going on with me. So if we can give ourselves permission to slow down and listen, and if you're a therapist, it's like we stay really, hopefully we're staying really attuned to our clients and what's happening in their bodies. Because oftentimes people aren't even aware of some of the body language that they're presenting to us, or even the facial expressions that can be, they're called micro expressions. They're so micro, but if you can stay centered and congruent in your session, you can really get a lot of information when you're with somebody in an interaction, or just like even in the store, you see something flash across somebody's face. There's some inner experience happening. So self-esteem continued is just remember our family rules. Always is yes or never is no. So as we're teaching the family rules, is like often they're couched, they're presented as always be nice, or never make your mother mad. So those are also some of those yes or no's. So what that means is then the yes or no's come from family rules. So those family rules are often almost like sort of programmed when we're really young, and we're still operating from an outdated program, and we're not often even aware that we're running these outdated programs that no longer fit for who we've become now as these mostly mature adult beings. So you'll see this little picture of like this girl or boy rebelling against probably this rule of no pets, and they're like have their pet and they're smiling. So like we rebel against our rules too, but when we rebel, often there's a body sensation, like my heart might start beating, and I'm like, I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I could tell you a story about Jennifer rebelling about her family rules, but I'll leave that to Jennifer. So, the thing about family rules is that we want to explore and discover and change the impacts of your family rules, not necessarily change the family rule itself, but we want to change the impact. So as we're listening to our bodies and we're listening to our own unique life force energy and our wisdom, if it fits for me now, I can make a decision. I don't have to do this always or never thing that I grew up with. So I love this piece. The family rules become beliefs, and the beliefs then become habits, and then the habits become like sort of like this outdated program that doesn't fit in the present moment. So we're sort of running on autopilot sometimes, with the yeses and nos. Somebody asks me to do something and I can say, okay, I'll do it. But on the inside, I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. So that can be a family rule. Always be, helpful. And that always is always saying yes. So we want to look at, how do you change your habits? How do we change these habits, these old outdated programs? And we have to be willing and really curious. Jennifer and I were sort of talking with John Banman about the 3 C's, competence, confidence, and congruence. And he really said, hey, he thinks we need to add a couple more. And one of those is curiosity. So like this sort of willingness to be curious so we can explore and discover and have new awarenesses about ourselves. So we can always be learning about ourselves, and not learning's just not enough. It's got to be that we're willing to learn and grow. And in learning and growing, that means that we have to be willing to experience the impacts. And so, with the Satir model, it's like just, when we look at impacts, we're not looking at sugar and spice and everything nice. We're looking at, sometimes it's painful, it hurts, there's tears, there's sort of disbelief, and sometimes there's even guilt and shame. But we have to be able to experience the impacts. And so David Hawkins talks about how you have to feel it in order to heal it. So how do you change impacts? You explore, you discover new awarenesses, you experience the impacts, you feel it in order to heal it, and then you can make new decisions, and then you can begin, and new decisions would be the part where it's transformational change. You can make some changes, and then you have to integrate it. And integrating it is the anchoring of like your new decision. So how do you change habits? You practice your new decisions. And then it's repetition, repetition, repetition. So yes or no, in a short little sentence, would be, look at like, how can you begin to experience yourself in a more positive way, and begin to explore and discover changing your impacts, listening to your body, and then practice, repetition, repetition, repetition. Jennifer, do you want to add anything?
I don't need to at this moment. Is it yes or is it no?
Is it yes or is it no?
No, that was great, Linda.
Thank you. Okay, so as of course, I think I especially get a little bit overeager with the questions. So just know that you don't have to do all of them. You can say yes or no, or maybe later. But we give you lots of choices, because we, in order for somebody to be able to make better choices, you need to be given lots of opportunity, ample opportunities to make your own decisions and choices about what fits for you. So you'll see that the questions are really sort of a way to look at the iceberg, another way to look at the iceberg around what your yeses and nos are about. So first question, what emotions and body sensations do I experience when I say yes or no when I really don't want to? What beliefs about myself do I have if I say yes when I want to say no, or when I say no when I want to say yes? What do I believe about myself? And then what expectations do I have of myself when I say yes when I want to say no, or say no when I want to say yes? And those are the shoulds. What shoulds do I have? And just remember, the Satir was a little bit on the raunchy side sometimes, because she would say, don't should on yourself. So what shoulds do you have of yourself? And then what expectations do others have of me? And I didn't have what expectations do you have of them, because really it seems to me like it comes back to like, what do other people think I should do? What do they think I should say? And how might others see me, or what might they believe about me? Because often that belief stuff is like really drives us, and then they become habits. When we follow our beliefs that may no longer fit, we need to update them. And then below everything is always, what am I yearning for most in this situation, where I'm saying yes when I want to say no, or saying no when I want to say yes? You know, because we want to remember that people do these things. They say yes when they want to say no, or say no when they want to say yes, because they're just trying to get their yearning met. So that maybe they yearn for validation or respect or acceptance or love or harmony or peace. And I mean, in the world right now, I mean, there's lots of people yearning for maybe not so much acceptance, but sort of like, this is the right thing to do, you know, like integrity. And ultimately, I think it's peace and love, which was certainly Satir's message of peace within, peace between, peace among. But to get to peace, you know, we have to look at the impacts, and we have to make some new choices about how we're being in the world. So here are your breakout questions. I don't know if you can screenshot it or take a picture with your phone, or just like whatever you heard me say, you can go and, you know, you can talk about whatever you want. We're not monitoring you. So